Hey everyone, happy Mercury Retrograde. I'm Matthew Oliver from Stillwater Alchemy and want to touch base, connect in. I've been getting a lot of comments, a lot of questions about Mercury Retrograde as per usual. Even as I was recording this video, take two, my fire alarm went off and made this screeching noise that I've never heard it do before. And I just have one little candle burning. So again, you summon Mercury and mercurial things happen. So let's dive straight into this. Remember, Mercury retrogrades happen 3 times a year, sometimes 4 if we're lucky. So we always have these opportunities every year to really focus on these mercurial themes and how we approach them in our day-to-day lives. So of course, Mercury governs communication, our thoughts, our words, transportation, and of course, technology, as well as commerce and business, because of course, we need to use our voice and often technology to conduct business in this day and age. So with that being said, when we approach a Mercury retrograde, it's literally asking us to slow down. It also gives us an opportunity to revise, to check in, to reflect, to see how we are doing in all of those spaces. I personally kind of look at retrogrades, lunations, eclipses as kind of like pop quizzes, assignments, exams, like we are in school. And a lot of times when we're on our spiritual journey or a path and we approach a period like a retrograde, it's almost as if Mercury is giving us a test and asking us, have you been studying? Have you been following through on your word? Have you been doing the things that you need to be successful in business? And if not, this little test will really be an eye opener as what you need to get finalized later on. For example, if you know that you should back up all of your electronics and decide to not, well, you're probably going to fail that test if something were to happen to all of your electronics and now you have to troubleshoot, you have to go back and forth to the Apple store, whatever it may be. When moving forward, perhaps you're just going to back up all of your electronics every month. So it's not something you ever have to stress out about again. You've learned the lesson and now you're passing with flying colors. I had something very peculiar come up and I wanted to bring this up because it's a good teaching moment using myself as a guinea pig. So I have lawyers working for me for a specific part of my business, getting things done. And I actually started working with them last September when Mercury was in Libra and Mercury stationed retrograde at the end of September last year. So that was interesting in itself. And they invoiced me for something this morning. And I looked at this invoice and it was for a sizable amount and none of it made sense. And it wasn't what they had quoted in their original email back in August. So I just copy and pasted, asked some questions, wanted them to clarify, and they got back to me right away. They apologized, cleared things up accordingly, and all was well. But at first I was like, oh, this is one of the biggest law firms in Toronto. Of course, they know what they're doing. Maybe I was in the wrong and maybe I just didn't understand what they were proposing. And then, nope, we just got to copy and paste it and everything was resolved. And the fact that I started working with them a year ago and now this is coming up right now was just a good way of me being able to voice my concerns in a professional manner for business and get an outcome that was balanced and that made both parties happy as the sun shines through. And so, of course, with this specific Mercury retrograde, it's happening in the signs of Libra and Virgo. So one, looking at your own natal chart and seeing which houses are ruled by Libra and Virgo will give you a more specified idea of where this retrograde and the retrograde themes are going to be taking place. And secondly, just like for me, a very obvious example of Libra balance can really play into legal matters, commerce, business. It was all just very, very real. And so you can see where you were last September and see what themes are coming through from then that may be repeating themselves now, or it's like a part 2 or a part 3 where you have more information so you can approach the situation in a more powerful light. Okay. I also want to bring up the astrology and just show a few auspicious dates that I found. So when we get to September 23rd, we have this Sun Mercury retrograde cazimi. So when the sun is so close to the planet that it envelops it and it really amplifies the power of that, also representing the halfway point of this retrograde. So it's fun because this cazimi is happening on Friday, September 23rd. And remember that Libra is ruled by Venus. And so oftentimes Libra is concerned about the aesthetics, how something looks from the outside, whereas Virgo wants to make the systems run smoothly on the inside, kind of like Virgo is the clockmaker, making sure that everything ticks just right, or making sure all the trains run on time, where Libra could be the interior designer and wants to make sure the throw pillows and the colors of them match the decor of the walls and the sofas. Both are important. You want to make sure that the clocks are running and the pillows look cute. And we might have a beautiful opportunity on this 23rd to reestablish a relationship, because looking at this, it's at 0 degrees of Libra. So this really amplifies potentially a relationship or an agreement or a business deal that is going to be initiated, or it's like a new chapter that you're able to forgive and let something go to start anew. Because when we always have this Sun Mercury retrograde cazimi, it doesn't feel so heavy, or the effects of the Mercury retrograde almost have this grace period where there's lessons to be learned and almost like a pit stop in between the retrograde that we can really take what we've learned and apply it so that we can finish the rest of the retrograde with ease. And I also want you to pay attention to this. Venus is making a wide trine to Mars within 5 degrees. And then also that that's separating trine from Saturn. And then Mars and Saturn are also there. So it's like a wide, grand air trine. But for me, with Venus in aspect to both Mars and Saturn, and with this cazimi going on, there might be an agreement with like a lover, a past lover, how you want to proceed. Maybe you're going to end on amicable terms, or you're going to structure in a way that both people are happy. I would really not lose your voice if someone wants something from you or you want something from someone else. Be very clear and make sure the boundaries are there so that ideally both parties win if we're talking about Libra. And also to the Sun and Mercury making that opposition to Jupiter. So I really just kind of feel, how can you heal? How can you maybe let go of the ego and just truly love someone or something or the work and get the best possible outcome by respecting your boundaries? That's what I would focus on the 23rd. And then if we proceed to the 26th, we'll see that we have this Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. Throughout Monday, they'll intersect and that conjunction will be exact. And we also see that Mercury and Venus will be making a trine to Pluto. So over the 26th and the 27th, that Monday, Tuesday, that could also be, in general, falling in love with something greater, finding a deal or a course or a book or a resource that's going to help you significantly. It can also be a breakthrough for those of you that are in therapy, working with a coach, working with a trainer, whether it be physically, mentally, or spiritually. This is a really great opportunity to see how your mind and your body and your soul are all connected. If we're talking about Virgo wanting to purify, wanting to help, wanting to edit, I really feel like this is kind of a breakthrough energy, especially because if we look at the 26th, this conjunction is happening right after that Libra new moon. So it does feel very momentous, and it feels like there's opportunity for something powerful to come into play. And I also want to bring up, because that exact trine between Mercury retrograde and Pluto is happening on the 27th, where that trine is going to be activated again on October 7th. So if we look at this, once Mercury stations direct, we then also see now Mercury retracing its steps, making that trine again. So just kind of knowing between September 26th, September 27th, and October 7th, there might be something momentous or grand or a truth being revealed or universal truths. It doesn't just happen on a micro level. It could be happening on a macro level in terms of something falling into place that's going to be helping all of us, or just that internal breakthrough that could be happening. Okay. Beautiful. So what I'm also going to do is just give a brief rundown of how this retrograde may affect you based on your rising sign. So if you don't know your rising sign or haven't looked at your natal chart, you can just type in whole sign natal chart into Google. It'll bring up the calculator. You insert your birth city, birth time, your birth date, and it'll pop up. If you do not know your birth time, that's okay. You can also just scroll to which sun sign you are, and then listen and see if those themes resonate for you. I'm also going to put timestamps for all of the rising signs, so you can just skip to and watch yours respectively. Okay. And one last thing to note is that, remember, this retrograde starts in Libra and ends in Virgo. So there's going to be two houses that are affected during this retrograde. So I'm going to be touching on both. And I won't be able to touch on every single theme, but just the overall gist and kind of what's coming through on an intuitive level and how you can use this retrograde to your benefit. So we're going to start off with Libra risings. So with Libra risings, this retrograde is taking place in your first house and then in your 12th house. So really ask yourself, who am I? What is my identity? What do I stand for? These are going to be really important things because Mercury is in its joy in the first house, whether it's natally or in transit. And so you can think of this as, are my words aligning with my actions? And vice versa. If you really want to own and project a reality with your words, are the actions aligned? And the actions, you want to make sure that your word is impeccable and that you are really being intentional with how you speak. This also could be a cute time, hypothetically speaking, if you want to maybe play with the words that you use or learn something new, or if there's something that you want to invest into, or maybe you really want a brand new wardrobe and you're like, I'm going to sell and donate certain clothes and I want to bring in a new sense of self and my identity and how I condone myself. This is all really linked with that, of course, with Libra really being concerned with beauty and aesthetics, and also relationships as well. You might want to take stock of your relationships, who you're communicating with. Are those aligned? Are they not? So that when Mercury goes back into Virgo, into your 12th house, that could be a really nice time as you end September to take some time for yourself, to maybe get away, go on vacation. This could also be a time to dive deeper into your spiritual practice, meditation, or to work with a healer if there's something that's been a bit of a block, or if you feel called that you just want to learn more about yourself in terms of psychology, or learning more about certain spiritual or wellness practices, or even nutrition, right? How that's all connected. That would be a really nice time to focus in as we round out the end of September, and we're entering Libra season at that time as well. So there'll be a lot of activation for my Libra rising angels. Next up, we have Scorpio Rising. So my beautiful, sexy Scorpio Rising. So this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your 12th house and your 11th house. So as you start this Mercury retrograde, you may find yourself maybe going inward a little bit, maybe taking some time for yourself. There's also this element of the people that you're connecting with. Do they share the same spiritual beliefs that you do? And it doesn't have to be God or religion necessarily, but do those core principles of ethics and what you value align? Do you feel like your energy is uplifted when you're with certain people or not? And you can also take stock of too of what you're spending your money on. Is it as a way of escaping, or are you using your money to making you happier, to being of service, to maybe just taking some time for yourself and saying, I don't really want to work as much right now. I just want to go inward and focus in on myself and the healing that needs to be taking place. Because in the 12th house, we can find hidden enemies, vices, addictions, retreat, also hospital as well. You might find that you're getting over an injury or an illness and just putting a lot of time and effort and money into that, which is completely normal. The one thing that's also a plus in the 12th house is the self-care, the ascension, and the healing that can take place, because Scorpio season is right around the corner and the eclipses are taking place. So if you're feeling a little bit burnt out, or you really want to lean in on your spiritual practice or working through those shadows, this is the time to do so. When Mercury goes into Virgo, that's your 11th house, right? So we're talking about friendships, hopes and dreams, alliances, large groups. So there may be a relationship that you're going to mend or to have honest conversations with, to see where you stand. And that could also be in line with Are these certain people bringing my energy up or down? And once you've determined that, you might want to place stronger boundaries or just be honest with how you feel. And a really big thing is there's kind of that saying, right? You're the sum of the energy of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if we're talking about hopes and dreams falling in the 11th house, are the people that you're spending most of your time with, are their dreams aligned with yours? Are they genuinely happy to see you succeed when you get that promotion or a beautiful opportunity or go on that amazing date? Can you go to those people without feeling like they might be envious or jealous of you? That's just something to note as well. And you might even find that you're looking back at your life and saying, this has always been a dream of mine. It doesn't have to be a huge career aspiration necessarily. A dream of yours could just be, I've always wanted to have organic produce in my fridge, or I've always wanted to go for a massage every week. That's always seemed luxurious to me. That's what I really want to put my energy and focus towards. So seeing how those dreams are taking place, especially in the sign of Virgo, right? In order to help us feel better, in order to make our lives more organized and more productive. If there's something in that vein that's always been calling out to you, you may be approaching that now during the tail end of Mercury's retrograde, okay? Beautiful. Next up, we have Sagittarius Rising. So this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your 11th and 10th house. So the 11th house, we're talking about friends, relationships, in the sense of people that you want to collaborate with or want to connect with. The 11th house also has a big impact on large groups and large audiences, and has time as evolved. It's also a big space for social media. So for those of you who use social media channels for work, for your own enjoyment, you may want to evaluate how much time you spend on there. Does it bring you joy? Are the relationships causing you to be judgmental, or are you happy to see certain energies or certain things on those channels? You may find that what you used to care about and what you used to follow and gain knowledge from has changed. And it's okay to unfollow, to mute, to block, so that you feel more balanced, so that the relationships and the energy and the products that you're consuming from, let's say, social media are in check. And if we're talking about friendships, this is a time where you can really take stock and ask yourself, are my relationships aligned? Are there conversations that need to be had? And sometimes it's not you approaching a friend, it's a friend approaching you and wanting to have that conversation. And sometimes those with strong Sagittarius energy can be very blunt, very honest, very candid. But there's also a beautiful hope and optimism with Sagittarius as well. So if you find yourself on the receiving end of people saying, hey, like you always say you're busy, like, why don't you have time for me? Be honest. Don't just keep rebuffing them. If you feel like the relationship has changed or you have other priorities, perhaps laying that on the table and seeing if there's something to salvage in that relationship would be wise, or just knowing that the truth is going to be a great way to just pursue this energy so that you can attract more honest and authentic relationships moving forward. Because when Mercury retrogrades back into your 10th house, that's all about fame, honor, reputation, public standing, often connected with one's career. So I just intuitively feel that a lot of you are expanding, growing, that there is going to be a lot of opportunity presented. So knowing which relationships you want to pour into, which relationships are pouring back into you in terms of fun, adventure, love, compassion, trust, intimacy, whatever that may be, that is what you want to work on at first, so that when you have that 10th house activation, it's going to be very clear who you want to celebrate with and who is no longer part of who you would want to enjoy life with. Okay. Great. So next we have Capricorn Rising. So Capricorn Risings, this Mercury retrograde is going to be taking place in your 10th and 9th whole sign house. What does that mean? So with the 10th house, we're talking about our public image, notoriety, fame, honor, wealth. And there's also the energy of career that can be tied into that, especially if your MC is in the 10th whole sign house. So you might be reevaluating how you wish to show up in the workplace. Even sometimes social media can play into this, even that's more of like an 11th house energy. But if you found fame and success through social media, or that's part of what makes you a leader or famous in whatever field you're in, then you want to reevaluate that as well, how you're speaking on social media, how that can affect you. Be very cautious with your words and how you speak to others, because with that 10th house energy, it's kind of like spotlight is on you, or even how you interact with other powerful people in your life. You might find yourself speaking up more or wanting to connect in a more powerful, authentic way. There's also this energy of the 10th house too. How do you wish to be seen? How are you going to be portrayed? Are you having any fears of stepping further into success? And with your 10th house being ruled by Libra, you could maybe contemplate who you want to connect with, who you want to collaborate with, what type of people and energy do you wish to attract? And are you supporting yourself with your actions on a day-to-day basis to get there? When Mercury retrogrades into Virgo, into your 9th whole sign house, that is where we find higher learning, higher thinking, religion, spirituality, astrology, but also this aspect of international travel and relationships and publishing. So if you've been maybe putting aside time to work on a creative project, a script, a book, a podcast, but you just haven't fully pulled the trigger yet, or you haven't been able to spend as much time as you want, this Mercury retrograde might give you an opportunity to pick those projects back up, pick back up that book or that course that you're in the middle of to finish that off, or just really reevaluating. It's like, okay, I've invested into all of these things. I bought a few books. They're just sitting on my bookcase collecting dust. I'm going to pick up one of them and focus on reading that book and acquiring that greater knowledge over the next couple weeks. That would be a really beautiful way to use this energy. And for some of you as well, given that we are starting the semester, for those that are in university and college, you might be evaluating, is this the right choice for me, or did I just do this prematurely? Or some of you who didn't choose that route, and you're like, oh, I really do value education and higher education, but I want to do it my own way, and I want to find a way that feels authentic to me. So that could also be playing into there as well. So next up, we have Aquarius Rising. So with my beautiful Aquarius Risings, this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your 9th and 8th whole sign house. So the 9th house has to do with international travel, foreign affairs, languages, publishing, editing, storytelling, as well as our higher faith in regards to religion, spirituality, and astrology. So it's a lot of ground to cover, and it can manifest in a couple different ways. Given that Saturn is currently in Aquarius in your first whole sign house, there's this energy of I'm working a lot on myself, on my being, on improving myself in all ways. So with this Mercury retrograde starting off in your 9th house, is there something else that you wish to pursue? Is there a course or a mentor or someone or something that you want to learn from? This could also be a time to ask yourself if you have pending projects that you haven't finished yet because you've just been extremely busy and been going a mile a minute, that you want to get some things off of your desk. It's like, I just need to finish the final chapter of this novel and I can send it to the editor, or I really just want to finish the last couple modules in this course that I bought a year ago, and then I can affirm that I've learned what I wanted to from that situation. Also, too, with spirituality falling in the 9th, if you feel like you've been going through it and just need something to alleviate some pressure or stress, this could be a nice time to just surrender and really focus on a higher power or something that can give you a resolve or clarity. Because when Mercury moves into your 8th whole sign house, that is going to be opportunity to finish up any tax things that need to be dealt with, or focusing on accounting, maybe even finding an accountant or a team that can help you with your finances or with your business. The 8th house also talks about death and morality, surgeries, and things of that nature. So if you've been planning anything or need to get things checked on, or feel like you want to just alleviate any fear, seeking out those professionals, having people hold space for you could be really nice as well. And the last thing that we find with the 8th house has to do with other people's money, other people's resources. So investments, if you're going through your investments or you want to invest into something else, whether you're like, okay, these stocks are doing well, these ones aren't, how can we make this work? Or seeking out a financial advisor to help you, this could be a good time either to schedule that or to go in and just manage money and your investments at this time. Beautiful. So next up, we have Pisces Rising. So this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your 8th and 7th whole sign houses. So my beautiful Pisces Risings, this is really the time to get everything cleaned up, especially with regards to energy that you're giving to other people, both financially and intimately. The good news is that Jupiter is going to retrograde back into Pisces at the end of October, where it's going to stay until about December 19th and 20th. So you get 2 months at the end of the year where you're going to be the celestial favorite, where there's going to be the potential for huge opportunity, love, expansion to come in. So with this Mercury retrograde, I really want you to ask yourself, where am I giving my energy, time, my money, my resources? Am I investing into the right people? Am I investing into the right opportunities? All of these 8th house themes. When Mercury retrogrades back into Virgo, that's your 7th whole sign house, where we find relationships, marriage, clients, interpersonal relationships. And if we're giving our money and our time and our energy to all these different things or opportunities that are not serving us, that are not aligned with what we want, especially with regards to love. A big example I always find is that people are doing the spiritual work internally, but they're not seeing the results for a lover, intimate relationships externally. And sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, well, where are we actually spending our money? Are we spending our money in a not wise way? Or are we using our money to help us heal, to become more confident? If we have abandonment issues, those aren't just going to go away on their own by meditating every day. Meditating helps for sure, but seeking out professional help that can help with that trauma, 8th house energy, can help to make us more confident, to not have these triggers attack us when new relationships form, so that we can actually enjoy those relationships on a much more playful level. 7th house energy. So I really just want you to evaluate to where and to whom you're giving your time, energy, and money, and if that's aligned with what you actually want. And remember, we just had that beautiful Pisces full moon. Take that and run with it. Because when Jupiter goes into Pisces at the end of October, which is not very far away, you'll be laughing. And I want you to be laughing with the right people. Excellent. Next up, we have Aries Rising. So Aries Rising, this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your 7th and 6th whole sign house. So the aspect of your relationships and how they meld into your work life. Do you have enough time to spend with your partner, your family, those that are close to you? Or is your work life kind of taking over? That's going to be a big effect. So as we start this retrograde, that's all in your 7th house. So relationships, there might be an old lover or someone else that you've really been into that comes into play, even though now you're in a committed relationship or you're even married. Sometimes a Mercury retrograde, those conversations or those problematic areas come up in conversation. And this is a time that you can choose how you want to proceed in this relationship. Communication is obviously going to be key, especially for those of you where that might be a weak point or you avoid confrontation. I will say, being an Aries rising, you might be the one that is more apt to have the conversation, to just clear the energy. But I often find with those with strong Martian or strong Aries energy, they just need to experience the emotion and then they're over it. They're not holding a grudge. But maybe for those that have more water or more air in their chart, they might overthink things, or they may feel like it's not resolved, even though that you say it is. So if you find yourself in situations where you just need to express yourself, maybe relaying that to the other person so that they know you're not mad at them. You just need to express that anger, that frustration, and then you can move on. Because not everyone's like that. I think personally, I love that about Aries individuals, that they can just experience it and then move on, because there's that Martian energy wants something to do. It's not just going to dwell on the past. Most times, of course, it depends on the entire chart. So how you express yourself in relationships, how you communicate in relationships, that's going to be a big energy, especially for those of you that are married or in a long-term relationship or even casual relationships. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just about love. It can be how you communicate with clients, how you communicate with any of those interpersonal relationships. Okay. The 6th house, where Mercury is going to retrograde when it goes into Virgo, that's work, that's physical health, that's servitude, superiors, subordinates. So if you're at work and you need to have a chat with people that work underneath you or your own superior, this would be a nice time to have those talks if you feel comfortable, or something might come up where you need to express yourself or exert your power or your confidence. That would be a nice time to do so. And of course, if you find yourself with regards to your physical health and that's waning, or it's not as prosperous as you would like. Of course, investing money into your nutrition, into supplements, potentially into a gym or a fitness regime that's going to serve you, that could be really nice as well. Or maybe you're doing renovations in your own home to like include a gym, or you've always wanted to buy a treadmill so that you don't have to commute back and forth to the gym. And there might even be a sale on a treadmill or a sale on the supplements that you want, right? Sometimes people forget that Mercury rules over commerce, and when it's retrograde, it can give us an opportunity to go back and get the things that we need, and sometimes at a really great deal. So use that energy wisely. Now we have Taurus Rising. So Taurus Risings, this Mercury retrograde is going to be taking place in your 6th and in your 5th whole sign house. So the 6th whole sign house has to do with work, servitude, dharma, your soul's purpose, or what really makes you passionate, as well as superiors and subordinate, injury and illness. So if you've been working through anything, if there's something that is really important to you, this would be the time to really balance everything, making sure you have the right health, stamina, power to continue working or to continue fulfilling out that purpose. Remember, the North Node is also currently in Taurus. So with that North Node being in your 1st house, you might really feel this surge of energy or this momentum that you've been building since January of this year. So really making sure your physical health is in top peak condition is going to be important. And then also, if you have people that work for you or that you work for them, just seeing if there's a connection to that and your health, and making sure that they're both supporting one another and asking for help. That's just coming through from an intuitive level. If you need the support, if you need help, this is a time to call on it so that you can exert your energy and passion to what's calling you at this time. And then when Mercury retrogrades back into Virgo, that's your 5th whole sign house. So this can be a little spicy because the 5th house is talking about pleasure, romance, sex, creativity, and children. So of course, can manifest in a couple of different ways based on your chart, but really just ask yourself, am I having fun? Whatever fun means for you. There could also be invitations or opportunities from past lovers or past opportunities that come up again. So let's say your friends asked you to go on a trip a couple months ago and you said, no, I need to focus on this, or this is more of a priority. And then they circle back and they say, hey, there's actually a flight deal right now. Are you sure you don't want to join us? That might be a beautiful opportunity. Also, of course, this is a very peak opportunity that a past lover or someone of that nature is coming knocking or is going to be corresponding to you. So just be mindful of that as well. If it's something that is aligned or that can be rekindled, by all means. But I just want to make sure that, again, with this Mercury retrograde starting in your 6th whole sign house, that your work and your health are in peak condition before we start spreading ourselves too thin. Excellent. So next up, we have Gemini Rising. So Gemini Risings, this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your 5th and 4th whole sign house. So Libra ruling the 5th house, that's a vibe, because the 5th house, we're talking about sex, pleasure, romance, creativity, adventure, and children. So for some of you, there might be news around your children, around fertility, around pregnancy. These are all things you might be having conversations with. For those of you that are thinking about having children, of course, the communication and talks about the investment and how everything is going to play out can be coming forth at this time. For those of you that do not have children, or that's not something that you're currently focusing on right now, then of course the pleasure aspect and how you want to pursue pleasure for yourself is on the table. And that's not just talking about sex, but anything that brings you joy. So whether that is your fitness, whether that's reading, whether that's traveling, all of these things you might be reevaluating and saying, okay, this is really important to me and I really want to incorporate more of this into my life. How can I balance out my time and energy to make more space for this, right? Because when Mercury retrogrades back into your 4th whole sign house, that has to do with home and family and dwelling. So then you might feel that certain things that you're making time and space for, maybe you want to enjoy that with your family. Maybe now you found this beautiful meditation studio and it brings you so much joy, and you want to bring one of your siblings or a parent to come join you. So it's almost like you're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. You get to do something that you enjoy and you get to spend time with family. Of course, there can also be energy around whether it's restructuring the home, whether it is renovating the home. Maybe you're buying or selling a home right now with that Mercury in the 4th. So that may also be a thing. It's like, I need to make sure I have enough money so that I can afford buying or selling at this time. Or maybe it's like, I'm about to sell my home, so I'm going to be having a lot of fun. So you're getting excited about booking your dream trip, and then Mercury goes into your fourth and you sell your home. There's a lot of ways, of course, this can manifest, but just knowing the peak areas are pleasure, creativity, and children, and then your home and family, and how that's going to be topics of conversation, or how you want to discuss how your energy is going to be divided at this time. Okay. Next, we have Cancer Risings. So Cancer Risings, this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your fourth and in your third whole sign house. So if we're talking about the fourth house, that is going to be encompassing themes of home, family, dwelling, your private life. And so this is a big thing, Cancer Risings, because how are you communicating with those close to you? Are you making sure that your needs are being met? Are you able to show up and have enough time to enjoy your family, to enjoy the home in which you're currently living? Is your home supporting you? These are all things to note. Even just kind of intuitively, I feel like some of you might be moving or want to move or wanting to beautify your home so that you're able to feel more powerful and more calm where you currently reside, right? Because of course, Mercury can have an effect on our mental health and well-being, and our mental health is of course connected to how we talk, how we communicate. And so these are all things just to note, that if there are certain energies going on at home or going on with your parents or family, these are things that are going to be addressed. And then how you communicate in these environments, of course, when Mercury goes back into your third whole sign house, that may become more clear. The third house is also a house that represents community, neighborhood, primary learning, local travel. So for some of you, you might be traveling, there might be speaking engagements, there might be opportunities to travel or to just use your voice. And so that, again, Cancer Rising, is just asking yourself, like, what do I stand for? How do I want to use my voice to get what I desire? Especially in regards to those close relationships. And if we're talking again with third house themes, that's your community. So whether that is neighbors, whether that is a community that you are really passionate in terms of a hobby or a pastime, or just a community that you want to get involved in, right? Maybe it's a country club, or maybe it's a spiritual community or a meditation center, whatever that may be. This could also be a time of where you want to invest that energy into a space that's going to be supporting you moving forward. Next up, we have Leo Rising. So Leo Risings, this Mercury retrograde is taking place in your third and second whole sign house. So with the third whole sign house, we're talking about community, neighborhood, siblings, local travel. And I don't think anyone here is watching that might be this young, but if you are in high school or dealing with high school students, maybe primary learning takes place at this time. So if we're talking about third house energy, how are you showing up? Period. Community, neighborhood, on a day-to-day basis, the people that you connect with. And this can also just include little things that might seem very obvious, but like where you get your coffee, where you go for dry cleaning, where you go to dine, for restaurants, your movie theater, all these different things. Are you going to the same ones over and over again? Also, this is very random. This is just a download. If you have recently broken up with someone or had a falling out with a friend, and you kind of have this energy of like, they get this side of the city, I get that side of the city, kind of like a common 90s or early 2000s trope. That's just what's coming through. If you feel like you're stifled or being blocked from going somewhere, and this might not have anything to do with a break, this might just be your own self-worth. It's like, I really want to go to that gym, but I don't feel worthy. I don't feel like I have enough money. If there is something in your neighborhood or community that brings you a lot of joy, maybe you can't go there a lot right now. Maybe you can't afford it at this time, but maybe you can go there once a week or once a month to tap into that frequency. And if there's somewhere that doesn't feel aligned, you don't need to keep going there. Maybe you just don't like the ambiance of a certain coffee shop that your loved ones or partner goes to. You're like, this is not a vibe. Very Libra. Maybe there is a new coffee shop you want to try out, or a new club, or something that is more aligned with what you want to do and where you want to spend your money. Because again, when Mercury goes into your second whole sign house, that's your personal finances and resources. So this could also be an opportunity as well during the entire Mercury retrograde to look at your expenses, to look at your finances and see, are these things actually worth it? Are these subscriptions, are these monthly memberships serving me or not? And you could have all the money in the world, but putting money towards something that's not bringing you any joy, or that's not supporting a cause that you believe in, start canceling those and really asking yourself, I'd rather just take this money and take my loved one, my sibling, and go out for a nice dinner. I'd rather spend this time with them instead of all these countless things that no longer hold my interest. And a big thing that's just coming through intuitively as well as leadership, Leo Rising. That's extremely important for you in general. However, if we're worried about money, if we're worried about our finances, we might not be able to show up on a day-to-day basis in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, if you have children or if you teach in school systems, to really shine your light and to be a full presence there. So just asking yourself those questions of, are the places that I'm frequenting aligned? Am I spending my money properly? And how can I maybe tweak these things to feel more powerful and so I can use my voice in a more benevolent, aligned way? And last but not least, we have Virgo Rising. So Virgo Risings, this Mercury retrograde, of course, is going to be very pronounced for you because it starts off in Libra, your second whole sign house, and then it finishes in your first whole sign house. And the thing to note here is that the second whole sign house has to do with money, personal resources, personal finances, where you exert your energy or what you wish to spend your money on. So given that Virgo rules that part of your chart, you might be very precise. You might be doing some accounting. You might just really be checking the pros and the cons of how far your money is taking you. We do generally find investments in the 8th house, but you might, after doing all the calculations, find that you have more money that you wish to invest. Or this could be an opportunity of like, I need this money to feel safe. And so there might be that offering of money, or there might be more opportunities that are coming in, or there might be downloads in ways how you can make more money. Because when Mercury goes back into your first house, there's going to be an energy of using your thoughts and your words in a more aligned manner. This can also be a really great way to check in with regards to your mental health, your spiritual well-being, and just in general, how you feel, because now Mercury is in the first house where it is said to rejoice. So it is a really great place for Mercury to be. And of course, Mercury is in its domicile and exalted in the sign of Virgo. So yes, Mercury might be retrograde, but there's a lot of things that are going for it. So overall, just given that the ruler of the first is in the first in a very powerful position, as you finish off this Mercury retrograde and as Mercury stations and goes direct that last week of September, first week of October, there might just be a lot of powerful revelations around your identity, your image, what you stand for, who you want to be with. It's kind of everything is being activated at the same time. So really taking this time seriously, because there can be a lot of significant growth, change, and expansion that's going to be taking place. Boom. I believe that's everyone. I tried to go in order and make sure that we got every single rising sign. Like I said before, if you don't know your rising sign, you can just check in with your sun sign or your moon sign and see the general gist of the energies that are going on right there. I also just want to bring up something really quick as well in true Mercury retrograde fashion. When we finish this Mercury retrograde on October 1st, we see that Mercury is almost directly opposing Neptune. So just be cautious of this weekend, October 1st, October 2nd, October 3rd. There might be this energy of, I know what I need to do, but there still might be a narrative or a fantasy or illusion. It's like when someone is saying, you just need to go get this checked out by the doctor. And you know that it's the right thing to do, but in your head, there's all these different stories playing or all these different fears, or just it's easier just to watch Netflix all day and get lost in a fantasy, or to run away from something, or vice versa, where it's like you're taking things way too seriously. It might be nice to just chill out for a little bit. There could also be things that are in negotiations or delayed, or there could be an opportunity to really use the energy of Neptune, especially Neptune in Pisces, to romance something or to approach something from a way that you're really painting a picture. And this isn't manipulating, although there might be an option to do that or to be pulled into that. But just being aware that if you're at a place when Mercury is stationing direct at the beginning of October, where you're not where you want to be, or you haven't amassed success, or you haven't gotten the manifestation just yet, it's removing energy from the mind and bringing it back into the heart, really surrendering, letting go, and leaning on your faith. If your heads are in the clouds and you're leaning too much on Neptune, you might need to sit down and come back to earth and ground yourself with some actionable steps that are going to help you. It's like, I know that I feel really upset if I don't go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to start scheduling that in. I'm going to start booking myself in so that I know that these things are there, so I don't just stay in my victimhood or be really anxious throughout the day-to-day process. So whenever we have oppositions in astrology, it's almost like it's a teeter-totter, and you have to make sure that in order for both planets to function, it's almost like they have to be in equilibrium with one another. If one is expressed, the other one is going to be as happy and not able to express itself as it desires. And this is also just your permission as well during those first few days of October. Just relax. And there can often be this sense of fantasy and a dream-like quality of Neptune where it's like, just go with the flow. You might feel super creative at this time as well, where it's like you've been hitting a writer's block and then Mercury stations direct and all these ideas pour in. And you don't want to question it. And it's like, how is this even real? I've been trying so hard and it all just comes in. Or you, let's say, get this huge promotion, or you find a lover that's amazing. And then people around you, it's like, oh, do you really think that's going to last? And so instead of enjoying the Neptune energy, now the mercurial mind might come in to poke holes at everything. So just wanted to give that caveat that you can really enjoy it and just allow Neptune to guide Mercury out of being so clinical and being so cerebral. And then Mercury can help Neptune not stay in a fantasy land and have little guideposts so that you can stay in that fantasy land for longer. Beautiful. So that wraps this video up. Of course, I hold consults one-on-one for my clients, and I also do longer form sessions with regards to mentorship and coaching. So if you're interested and you want to learn how to use your chart more appropriately, or if you would like someone to hold space in a spiritual, mental, physical capacity, I got you covered. I'll put the description, links, all the information that you need. Any questions, any comments, any ponderings, musings from what we just discussed, let me know. I always am a big proponent of taking back our power and autonomy and not living in a fear-induced environment. So yes, Mercury retrogrades can cause words to be slurred, things to be slowed down. I do find that Mercury is a bit of a prankster, whereas if you don't give it energy, if you don't freak out, it goes on to its next encounter to try and prank someone else or to try and have fun with a technology snafu. That's just my own personal mindset around a Mercury retrograde. So if you can just laugh at yourself or know that this period isn't going to last forever, and there is such an energy when you can't think of a word or when words blend together, that sometimes those are when those creativity snaps happen, or when those miracles take place, or when it's just kind of the magic and the beauty of, you know what you want to say, but it physically can't come out, or you know that something should work and it doesn't, and you can just leave it and go and do something else and know that you'll come back to it and it'll work. There's such power in that surrender and getting to play with this energy instead of allowing it to be a deterrent and a frustration. That'll be my final musing to leave off of. Have a great rest of your Mercury retrograde. Enjoy the rest of Virgo season, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.